Harrison Ford has weighed in on the current political makeup of the United States after 6 months of President Donald Trump's second term. One of the things that he said, which I actually agree with, is that he said we've been purposely disaggregated into serviceable political units. I think he is absolutely right on that. But pretty much everything else he says is a load of crap. But let's get into this here. I wrote this up over at phantompulse.com. He made these comments in an interview with Variety. He was asked, now that we're 6 months into the Trump presidency, what do you think about where the country is? And this is what he initially responded. The pendulum doth swing in both directions, and it's on a healthy swing to the right at the moment. And as nature dictates, it will swing back. This is simply not true. The United States of America has progressively marched into degeneracy, and there has been no swinging back. The most obvious example is that in many minds, the idea of transgenderism has not only been tolerated but accepted. If a pendulum was actually swinging in the opposite direction, this idea would not be tolerated, let alone accepted. I mean, you can go to various hospitals throughout this country on their websites. I like to cite Duke because it's just the easiest one that comes into my mind. Duke Health. I'm here in North Carolina, so it's pretty obvious, but it's still on their website how you can supposedly get all kinds of procedures to change your sex, which you cannot do. It is impossible to change your sex, but they are offering what they call gender affirming care, and it's not been outlawed. If we were actually seeing a return back to truth and goodness, this stuff would have been outlawed. 100%. It would not be tolerated, let alone accepted. Additionally, St. Thomas Aquinas defined natural law, and this is specifically to Ford's comment here, as nature dictates about this pendulum. That's just utterly ridiculous. The whole pendulum idea, I think, is a psyop in general, but St. Thomas Aquinas defined natural law as this: nothing else than the rational creature's participation in the eternal law. So in my mind, it's absurd to claim that nature would dictate some kind of pendulum swing. If natural law is nothing else than the rational creature's participation in the eternal law, you wouldn't have a pendulum swing whatsoever. This idea of the pendulum swing, again, I think is a complete and utter psyop, and it's just a really bad way of looking at the world. I think the Christian view of looking at the world is accurate. We live in a fallen world with original sin, etc., but we are good creatures. But due to original sin, we have this inclination to do evil, and we are kind of always fighting against that with the help of God's grace and the virtues. Nevertheless, Ford continues saying, but currently the issue is not who we are, but that we're not who we used to be, because we've been purposely disaggregated into serviceable political units. And I think that is absolutely true. I think there's a ton of evidence of that, where, especially in the kind of internet age here, where a lot of things are dictated by algorithm. Many people are not looking outside of the algorithm for other viewpoints. They're not actually trying to seek the truth, and they just kind of go along with what what their biases already are. So I actually think Harrison Ford is right on that. We've been purposely disaggregated into serviceable political units, and I think that has been done through these various social media companies, in many cases at the behest of the government. I think that was abundantly clear when we saw the Twitter files and all the stuff that came out of that, and how, and then even Facebook, Mark Zuckerberg admitting that Facebook was indeed doing a lot of things at the behest of the federal government. So I think that's absolutely true with what Harrison Ford is saying there. I think that observation is correct. Anyways, he goes on, though, and says, and that has caused the middle to become frayed and tenuous, and the middle is where we belong, not because it's banal and safe, but because it's fair. Compromise is fair and honest. Ford does not define what the middle means or why it is where we belong. This is a popular meme. You see so many people saying this. We just need to get back to the middle. Both sides are crazy, whatever. It's ridiculous, and it's also contrary to the teachings of Christ. Revelation 3:16 says, I wish you were either cold or hot, so because you are lukewarm, neither hot nor cold, I will spit you out of my mouth. This is seen throughout the New Testament. You can look at the gospel passage where Christ says, I have come as a divider. I will pit father against son, etc., because he's clearly saying that you'll have to choose him over everything else. Even yesterday's gospel passage was talking about that, where a man finds treasure buried in a field, and that is like the kingdom of heaven, right? He hides the treasure, he goes off, sells everything else, comes back and buys that piece of land because he is now completely dedicated to the kingdom of heaven. He has gotten rid of everything else. And so you choose Christ, right? You wouldn't choose some middle between Christ and Satan. That's just ridiculous, right? So the whole meme doesn't make any sense whatsoever. Then he said, in politics and in life, you don't always get what you want, but you get what you get, and you don't get upset. I agree that you don't always get what you want. As far as not getting upset, I think that is also untrue. Obviously, there are things that you should be getting upset about. You should be getting upset that these hospitals are butchering our neighbors. They're butchering our fellow men. We should be getting upset that there are people out there murdering innocent children. We should be getting upset about that. We should be getting upset about people discriminating against people based on their skin color, as we have seen most recently against white people throughout Hollywood, throughout all of these major financial companies where they have these DEI policies where they've clearly put into writing that they are discriminating against people who happen to be white. Right? So that's absolutely wrong, and you should be upset about that. Those things should be getting you upset because they are wicked. Anyways, he goes on and says they teach us that in kindergarten, but they also teach you to fight for what you think is right. Again, that is a big problem as well. Think what is right, especially when we're getting lots of propaganda telling you that something is right when it is indeed wrong. One can just look at all of the academic, in quote, I'm doing air quotes, academic work on feminism. That stuff is just all evil. Feminism is wicked, absolutely wicked. How it teaches, and it's connected to the gender ideology and all that stuff. And Dr. Edward Fieser has done a really good job of connecting all of those dots and how they are indeed connected. But that's a video for another day. Anyways, Ford then goes on, now because we've been disaggregated in this way, we're having a hard time finding commonality. But if you look at the economy, you'll figure out where the commonality is. It's where it always was. Rich get richer and poor get poorer, and that ain't exactly right. There might be something to that. I think that's definitely how Trump has kind of rallied a lot of people to his cause. I don't think that is something that will actually hold true in the long term. I think the commonality that we're going to have to find is returning to Christ. And I think you're actually kind of seeing that play out in a number of different sectors. Obviously, one of the big things happening right now, or at least is the topic du jour, is the censorship debate. And you're seeing feminists and and people who used to, I would describe as anti-woke, kind of teaming up to push porn, right, against Christians, and which is quite interesting, right? Which shows you, I think that's where the commonality is going to be had. You're going to see people of Christ versus pretty much everyone else. I think that is where the true commonality will be found moving forward, because again, that is the truth. When asked what his thoughts were on where to go from here, Ford said, "You're asking an unqualified person, so I don't have that answer." I do. I have an answer. The answer is returning to Jesus Christ, returning to the church, dedicating your life to him, being that person who finds the kingdom of heaven buried in the field and goes out and gets rid of everything that you've done and goes and buys that piece of land where that buried treasure is, where the kingdom of heaven is. That is where we go from here. And when we start dedicating ourselves to Christ and we start acting the way that Christ has commanded us to do, that will start influencing the people around us, and it will start influencing our society and culture, and it will be for the good. But that's what I have to say here. Let me know what you guys make of this. Let me know in the comments below. Remember to always be charitable, especially to each other. I know that's definitely something that tests me quite often. I try my best. Obviously, don't always succeed in that. And that's why I it's not just a reminder to anyone listening, but it's a reminder to me. That's why I say it. Always be charitable, especially to those in the comments. And then we always have to speak the truth. Always speak the truth.
Why would you be afraid of the people? Why are you not afraid of God instead of man?